Nous vous rappelons que les casques sont disponibles pour la traduction en anglais, en français. L'anglais, c'est pour le niveau B1. Donc, vous pouvez vous rapprocher des ambassadeurs dans la salle si vous avez besoin des casques. Merci. Nous vous rappelons également que dans la salle C, vous pouvez assister à une démonstration de discussion avec une intelligence artificielle. Et la discussion peut se tenir dans toutes les langues. Et cette intelligence artificielle est développée par Valent AI. À présent, mesdames et messieurs, nous poursuivons notre élan de la journée avec ce panel qui a pour thème l'éducation à l'ère numérique, autant pour moi, libérer les opportunités de carrière. Et ce panel sera modéré par le professeur Henny Moustapha. Il est professeur et directeur général du réseau Smart Digital Green Innovation à l'Université de Québec au Canada. Et dans le panel, nous aurons Dr Eba Saleh, Madame Clémence Vidal de la Blache, Madame Nora Abou El Seoud, Monsieur Amer El Masri et Monsieur Sherif El Naga. Bonne suite à vous. Merci. S'il vous plaît, pour un détail, la démonstration avec l'intelligence artificielle se fera uniquement pendant les pauses. Merci.
Okay, bon après-midi à tout le monde ici. C'est un plaisir encore une fois d'être parmi vous. C'est la deuxième fois que je viens à cette conférence. Alors j'étais chanceux d'être parmi vous en décembre 2022. Je suis égyptien-canadien. Alors comme vous connaissez le Canada, ici on est un pays qui est bilingue. Alors on parle l'anglais et le français. Alors je vais faire un switch entre anglais et français. La plupart ça va être en français. Alors pour nos étudiants de Saint-Gor ici, ça me fait un plaisir d'être parmi vous. Alors notre session aujourd'hui, c'est une session, je comprends très bien qu'on a dit le Education in Digital Age, but I mean before the Education in Digital Age, I would like to mention that it's more than Digital Age. C'est plus que le Digital Age. I know here when I'm switching from English to French here, that will be like a challenge for the translator, you know, so they have to catch me as far as that. So I think we will be talking about smart digital green technology and what will be the impact on career and education. And we have a distinguished list of speakers. There will be, the way we're going to run the panel, I'm going to give you like a très courte présentation de 10 minutes à peu près sur ce que j'appelle Smart Digital Green Transformation, simplement pour donner un état des choses. Et après ça, on va faire un tour de table avec chaque conférencier, chaque panéliste au point de vue qui présente avec une présentation PowerPoint dans 5 à 10 minutes maximum leur opinion sur l'impact sur la carrière, l'impact sur l'éducation. On est chanceux d'avoir avec nous Dr Heba, Clémence, Nora, Amr et Sherif qui vont introduire. Et c'est un bon mélange parce que comme vous voyez, on a le Canada, on a aussi l'Égypte qui est représentée, on a la France qui est représentée, on a Siemens, c'est-à-dire l'Allemagne qui est représentée, et puis on a Microsoft, c'est les États-Unis. Alors on a 5 pays qui vont représenter tout ça. Sans plus tarder, je vais vous donner très très vite un aperçu d'une présentation que j'utilise toujours, et c'est, comme on dit, au-delà de ce qu'on appelle le 4.0, 5.0. Alors, comme vous connaissez, les Allemands, en 2011, ils ont inventé ce qu'on appelle l'industrie 4.0. On connaît très bien la première révolution industrielle avec l'agriculture, la mécanisation, la deuxième, la troisième, c'était l'automatisation. Et puis maintenant, on est dans la quatrième. Alors, la quatrième, c'est très caractérisé par la vitesse des technologies qui viennent in terms of speed, connectivity and culture. I mean, lots of things are happening very quickly. Un exemple, par exemple, je ne sais pas si vous avez entendu le jumeau numérique, digital twin. So everything physical, we have to have like a simulation digital out of that. Ça, c'est le digital twin. Alors ça, c'est une des technologies, et puis on peut parler de ça. La seule chose ici que j'aimerais vous dire que l'industrie 4.0 était dans notre vie depuis longtemps, au moins 40 ans. Parce qu'on ne va pas oublier, en 1983, on avait l'Internet. Google, c'est 1998, Facebook 2004, GPS, iPhone. Tout ça, on connaît ça déjà. Ce n'est pas un mystère, le 4.0. Et puis même, j'aimerais vous dire, le Uber et le Airbnb, c'est le 4.0 aussi. This is what you call share economy, electronics hub, the platform. So it is, in a nutshell, we can say connecting the unconnected. And it's a journey. It will not finish. Et ça qu'on va. Les Japonais, n'aimaient pas beaucoup cette affaire de Industry Factory. Ils sont venus avec la société 5.0. Et ça, c'est très, très important, surtout avec les Nations Unies, leur ODD, Sustainable Development Goal, les objectifs de développement durable. Alors ça a changé beaucoup l'écosystème. Après ça, il y a plein de livres qui ont été publiés. Alors je vous invite à consulter le web sur, par exemple, ce qu'on appelle le X.0. Ça, c'est nouveau. Parce qu'au lieu de, I mean, people are getting tired from 4, 5, and when will we have the 6, when will we have the 7, etc. So they call it X.0. So that's something. Something also here in terms of reinventing the product. Comment on va réinventer le produit. Et quand on parle réinventer le produit, we're talking about smart connected product, which means here I'm going to have sensors in my car, in my fridge, in my stove, and all of these sensors will be connected to the manufacturer in order to change the designs of manufacturing, etc. So that's the future. Mais il y a toujours des défis au point de vue, comme on dit, l'industrie 4.0. Est-ce que les robots vont nous remplacer? Bon, ça, c'était un grand défi et jusqu'à maintenant, on parle de ça. Est-ce qu'il y a des emplois qui vont disparaître? Est-ce qu'il y a de nouveaux emplois qu'on va avoir? OK, premièrement, le premier défi ici, comme vous connaissez, il y a plein de compagnies et de pays qui ont commencé à travailler 4 jours par semaine. Pourquoi pas? Si notre productivité a augmenté, pourquoi pas? On connaît très bien, par exemple, dans le 18e siècle, on travaillait 6 jours par semaine et chaque jour, c'est 12 heures. On travaillait 72 heures par semaine. Vous connaissez très, très bien, par exemple, en 1926, Henry Ford, c'est lui qui a introduit les 5 jours par semaine, 40 heures. Il y a des pays maintenant, il y a des compagnies qui travaillent 4 jours par semaine. Et puis, il y a plein de statistiques qui disent que la productivité augmente avec ça. On ne va pas oublier certainement aussi que les émissions de CO2, le bruit, tout ça, ça diminue. Alors, on a 4 jours, 3 jours, l'économie toujours roule. La raison pourquoi? Parce que les familles peuvent aller au cinéma, au shopping center, ils peuvent voyager. Alors, ça va toujours rouler l'économie. And then, sometimes we have what you call work less, work better, which is true, actually. I'm going to give you an example. Par exemple, à Montréal, où je suis, les étudiants, ceux qui travaillent pour moi, les ingénieurs, ils travaillent 4 jours par semaine. Le vendredi, samedi, dimanche, c'est vacances. Ils sont payés exactement le même salaire. Et puis, parmi les 4 jours, il y a une journée en ligne aussi. Parce que ça augmente la productivité. Alors ça, c'est la nouvelle forme et c'est ça que nous allons travailler. Something else which I would like to share with you, which is AI. Lots of people are talking about AI, of course, that it's a possible threat for humanity, which is true. If we don't control that AI. For information, as you know, I don't know if you heard here, récemment, il y a un robot qui a attaqué un ingénieur à Tesla, un Tesla ingénieur dans les États-Unis. On doit contrôler ça. Comment dire, le ChatGPT, par exemple, il y a une chose ici que je veux parler. Pour votre information, un neurone de AI, c'est exactement la même consommation de CO2 pour 5 voitures pendant leur vie. Ça, c'est immense. Alors, artificial intelligence, which is mostly knowledge and decision making, it was created by us. So we have to control, human has to control AI before AI controls us. C'est exactement, c'est comme qu'on a une bête, ou peut-être un chat, ou peut-être un chien à la maison, et qui commence à croître, et qui va après ça comment dire, and they're gonna take us over. So we have to control AI before AI controls us. Something else which we should know, AI have no feeling, no emotion, no empathy. So people are saying that AI will replace us. This will not happen. Because don't forget, we have the brain, also we have the heart, and all of this here. Even some people are talking that can simulate that. There are something which is called emotion, AI, etc. But I don't think it's going to happen easily. Et c'est pour ça qu'on a quelque chose qui s'appelle la pollution numérique. Et ça, c'est connu. Et malheureusement, il y a plein de personnes qui ne connaissent pas ça. Un exemple, un courriel, c'est exactement 50 grammes de CO2. Si ça se produit par des énergies fossiles. Si on a ça par hasard, par des énergies qui viennent, par exemple, du soleil, du vent, de hydro, ça c'est une autre chose. So what I'm trying to tell you here, we are abusing internet. I mean, lots of people send email, text, WhatsApp, so many attachments for people who does not need to get those, and all of that take electricity. Pour votre information, 2022, 4% des émissions à gaz de serre, c'est à cause du numérique. Et c'est 2 fois l'aviation. Moi, je suis dans l'aviation depuis 40 ans, c'est 2 fois l'aviation. Et ça augmente presque 6% chaque année. C'est pour ça qu'on appelle ça green digitalization. So I cannot talk digital without talking green. L'autre chose, et ça c'est la deuxième correction pour le 4.0, on a le 5.0, c'est Human Machine Reunion, bringing human back into the action. Et ça c'est la grosse différence entre 5.0. Et c'est pour ça qu'au Canada, on a abandonné complètement le 4.0, 5.0 depuis une année, et on appelle ça ce qu'on appelle Smart Digital Green, SDG. Ça, c'est un network que je gère depuis 5 ans à peu près. Et puis le SDG aussi, c'est la même chose ici qu'on connaît, Sustainable Development Goal. Et ça, c'est une autre marque de commerce pour nous. Et puis on a créé même SDG international. Les fondateurs, c'est la France et le Canada, à Mulhouse en novembre, avec 6 autres pays, ou l'Égypte parmi ce pays, avec l'Université Galala. Alors, ça, c'est un SDG international, Smart Digital Green. Alors, simplement pour finir ma présentation, ce que je vais demander aux panélistes, et puis je veux dire simplement quelque chose qui se passe au Canada. Alors, on va partager avec vous les meilleures pratiques de l'Égypte, de la France, l'Allemagne, les États-Unis, le Canada, parce qu'on a les représentants de ces pays. Et puis, on va parler de quelles sont les career opportunities. I pick 4 areas: engineering, health, business, and social science. Everybody can pick what. And then, on va simplement faire un focus sur les compétences du futur, quelle sorte de programme on a besoin, quelle sorte de cours, que ce soit les cours crédités ou non crédités, et quelle sorte d'apprentissage on a besoin de faire, que ce soit des softwares, des facilités. Et simplement pour vous donner une idée, c'est ça qu'on a au Canada. Simplement pour finir, j'ai 2-3 planches avant que j'introduise le prochain speaker. Alors les skills par exemple, alors il y aura ce qu'on appelle l'Internet of Behavior. On a des skills qui sont emotional intelligence versus intellectual, augmented intelligence, so that we are treated as a human, multidisciplinary. On a entendu ce matin, comme on dit, du ministère d'Éducation et Recherche, interdisciplinary, par exemple, combiner le médecine avec le business, avec le social, etc. Et puis l'important pour les étudiants qui sont ici de l'Université Alexandrie, from Gamat al-Iskandariya or Gamat Zingor, it's very important here to focus on education, exposure, and experience. You're not going to get only things by education. You have to get exposure by exposure, attending event like that, experience by having hands-on experience at different events. Ça, c'est ce que j'appelle la prescription. C'est une chose qu'on a fait au Canada, et ça donne un sommaire de toutes les 4 cadrans que je vois ici. Le premier cadran à gauche en haut, ça donne toutes les compétences qu'on a besoin. On a utilisé ça pour les ingénieurs, mais ça peut être pour n'importe quel diplômé. Les sortes de formations qu'on a besoin. À droite en haut, les cours, que ce soit des cours crédités ou non crédités. Et puis aussi les softwares, tous les outils numériques qu'on a besoin. Alors ça, j'appelle ça la recette. Il y a des autres choses ici. Très important que ICT sont intégrés dans tous nos curriculums. On a plein de choses ici comme Dual Study Practice, comme on connaît l'Allemagne, ils ont le Digital Learning Factory. It's like Siemens. We use Siemens software. We have to use it everywhere, at least in engineering and business. A training program, recruitments, etc. And knowledge dissemination. Alors ça finit ma présentation. Alors, j'aimerais maintenant inviter notre premier conférencier, Dr. Heba Saleh, qui est le Head of Information. Dr. Heba, if you can join us. Head of Information Technology Institute at MCIT Egypt, and then she will share with you what they are doing at ET. Thank you very much for your attention. And we're going to leave. Thank you. We're going to leave. On va laisser les questions à la fin, comme j'ai dit. On va faire un tour de table pour les prochaines 45 minutes, et après ça, on va avoir une période de questions avec vous autres. Alors, vous pouvez garder vos questions jusqu'à la fin. Merci. Un plaisir.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Masā al-khir jami'an. Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Hani. Thanks for the invitation and thanks for this introduction. I think Dr. Hani took us quickly through the world's journey, starting from the mechanical journey, the electrified-based revolution era, the internet-based era, reaching what we are witnessing and living now, where we are calling this revolution the disrupted revolution. We are living in a disruptive, crazy environment and crazy world, fueled by the mix of internet and the data and the accelerated computing power. And adding to this, the biological factor and the biological element to this mix will make it more crazy. So by definition, disrupting word disruption in the dictionary is referring to facing and causing difficulties in the normal ways and in the normal operations that we used to do. So it will be difficult to continue doing what you used to do without paying attention to the surroundings. So I think we are living in this. 2 days ago, we've been hearing about Sura, a new version launched by OpenAI, talking about creating videos just from text. So what has been launched 2 days ago is already used, and kids in Egypt now and students in our institution are trying this and making new levels of applications just in few days. In 2 days, they are working with this. So what really distinguishes our disrupting crazy world is the level of scale and the speed in unprecedented way facing the humanity, being able to grasp and understand and respond and reflect to all of this in a very short period of time is very challenging. So with the cab drivers, I think we all see how the cab drivers world has been affected by the Uber-like business model. So some of people faced these challenges in a way that turned into threats to their living, and other people turned these challenges into new opportunities for their livings. So, and both of them, the sad people and the happy people, the sad team and happy team, will be faced by another threat coming thanks to another wave of technologies, thanks to the autonomous driving technology. So both of them will be threatened, and another segment of people will be enjoying new level of opportunities if they are paying attention to the new areas that the world is looking for in terms of not only technological speaking, but as well on the level of legislative side and the supporting services and the new models that will be created by all of this, and instead of the old models. So disruption in our world always comes with threats and always comes with opportunities. So our ability to respond, to understand first and to respond and to take part of this disruption is the key element in deciding whether we will continue developing and surviving and taking part in this revolution or towards extinction. I think education is not in isolation from what's going on, so education is the industry that we are all looking at to prepare the mindset for people who either will be left behind or will be able to take their part in amidst this turmoil. So if we are still preparing them in a deterministic way with this model that we used to have for the mechanical era and the electrified-based era, definitely we will be threatened, all of us, the community, the individuals, the institutions. If you are preparing and shifting and trying to respond to this level of ambiguity by taking part of this revolution, definitely the sky is your limit when it comes to the opportunities and the different advantages that we can enjoy being able to read this new equation. So I'm working at Information Technology Institution and I will share with you in a few slides our journey in responding to these changes. We are living in this, and we are working for 30 years. So we've been in the midst of this challenging and crazy world, and without paying attention to what's going on and trying to reflect very quickly, we will not be able to respond and to maintain our existence in Egypt with the same KPI of creating job opportunities for our youth. So Information Technology Institution, as you see, is in the market for 30 years, and we are an affiliate to MCIT. We are not affiliate to higher education. What we are trying to do basically is revolving around preparing youth, our youth, for future jobs. This is an opportunity, and we need to take care and to take advantage of our share. So now I'm trying to learn it very quick, what she's telling me. So what we are trying to do is making sure of our investment has a high ROI in terms of creating job opportunities for our youth. So we are training and we are giving scholarships for young talents for free. So it's totally subsidized by the government. And every year we are sharing our impact and our return of investment in terms of the number of created jobs, the number of employment opportunities for our graduates. We've been doing this consecutively for 30 years, and the key ingredients in our equation is close relation with the market, close relation with the industry, and of course integrating this close relation from one side with the companies, with the other side with the universities and academia, because after all, we are bridging the gap. We're not repeating others' efforts. So I'm happy to say that throughout these 30 years, and you can remember, by the way, during 2011 and afterward, what we've been through in terms of revolution, in terms of physical revolution, I mean. So it was very challenging to maintain 85% of employment for our graduates right before their graduation, during this challenging time. Keeping this percentage after graduation to ramp up from 85 to 94 within 4 to 6 weeks after finishing our scholarships is another KPI that we are keen to maintain and to level up. How we are doing this? Again, we are every now and then, every year, we are trying to read what's going on and to reflect on the way we are doing this. So I myself, I'm graduated from Faculty of Engineering, and I enjoyed the scholarships. I can see a lot of young talents here. So this is our journey that we are availing to a lot of Egyptian youth. So I benefited a lot from the scholarships that last for 9 months after my graduation. And what I used to have in terms of curriculum, in terms of way of delivering learning models, is totally different from what we are doing today. Because first thing is market-driven programs, market-driven scholarships. As I said, we are offering different 4-month scholarship and 9-month scholarships and another lifelong learning services. Every and each one of these services, whether it is related to programming, classical programming, AI, data science, game development, media and motion and graphics, all of the relevant programs related to the cinema market, all of these programs should be designed, driven by the market, driven by the key experts who are really know the secrets of this industry. So the design of the program is supported by complete hands-on learning environment. So it is driven by the challenges and driven by real applications that is very close to the expectation from the industry. Working together is not a luxury. Working together to have the teams from embedded system, for example, working with the team from UI and UX and the teams from quality assurance and testing is essential to leverage your skills prior to your graduation in a very competitive market looking for the best. So tying both three pillars and empowering these pillars with the continuous learning, because what we are doing in 9 months is not the end of the journey. What we are doing in 4 months is not the end of the journey. Once you've graduated and you secured your spot in the private sector, you will be faced by another challenges and another opportunities and another pool of requirements which you are facing for the first time. So self-learning is a part of the DNA of learners. So they have to be ready for this as early as possible. So our new normal way of learning is either hybrid and supporting self-paced to make sure that our calibers and our interns is up to the coming challenges, not only the existing seen ones. So this is, by the way, this is a set of portfolio.
Dr. Heba, if you can wrap up in 5 minutes, please.
Sure.
Thank you.
One last slide, but all of our services is here, and for the young talents, they are more than welcome to take a photo and see if they can benefit from one or more. So in 30 years, following these pillars and following these actions, we've been managed to move from just in 1993, 2 job profile, 2 programs, to 30 programs, which allowed more of talents coming to take their parts of this opportunity. So graduates from art schools are coming to take their part of opportunities by knowing VFX and animation and so forth. Graduates from education, for example, are coming and more than welcome to take part of their opportunities if well equipped with the new technological tools that supported their educational background, specifically in the area of content production, LMS, and instruction design, and so forth. So the more you are marrying between your academic skills and the technical skills and the environment skills, the more you are ready to the expectation from the market. We moved as well from assessing the job opportunities in the classical work, and we added the freelancing and remote working, because remote working and freelancing now is considered to be around 40% of the globalized workforce. So it's a new normal, but you need to be ready with the what does it need in terms of branding for yourself, for example, in the social arena, taking care of your HR and finances, taking care of your skills development. Now you are not working in classical hierarchical working environment. There is an HR and there's financing and there's your boss who will take care of you. No, all of this will be taken care by yourself. So it's another set of skills that you need to be aware. This is exactly what we are trying to encourage and empower our interns through their scholarships. Again, working in different models, working in different marketplace, shifted our program structure from just focusing on the technical skills to include more of interpersonal and language competencies. Of course, adopting as early as possible. Maybe 10 years ago, we've been adopting the learning management and online content and providing this self-learning model for our interns and availing it for the community. So we've been reaching a lot of requirements coming from students and talents in their school, middle school and high school. They benefited from this free content and free curriculums, and now they are threatening us as an institution, because this is a new generation who will be expected to continue our classical programs. But now, if we will not be able as fast as we can to change and to adapt our curriculum, which is already available for them from their schools, I think we will be suffering, and again, we will be faced the options, whether we are going to continue developing or extinction phase. So I will leave you with this slide. I told you in the beginning of my presentations that we are working in different locations distributed all over Egypt, inside the universities. So this is a gap, this is a bridge between the students and the graduates and what's needed by the future market. And I'm happy to share with you different calibers, thousands and thousands every year of calibers graduated from art, from engineering, from commerce, from computer, who have the passion. First, they enjoyed our learning journey, and now they are working either through the classical model or remotely or freelancing. The journey is not over. I know that I'm just trying to share with the educational institution, with the individual, the secret ingredients with what's going on and what that will continue for the coming years is keep learning and keep observing what's going on and keep reflecting to close the gap as much as you can. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Heba. Next presenter, Clémence. What is that, please? Merci pour...
Bonjour à tous. À la demande des organisations partenaires, je vais moi aussi présenter en français cet après-midi. Je serai ravie de répondre à vos questions en français ou en anglais. Merci aux équipes organisatrices du forum. Merci, professeur Hani, pour votre cadrage stratégique des enjeux, des impacts de ces nouvelles technologies sur les formes de travail. Merci, Dr. Heba, pour votre perspective institutionnelle et un exemple, à travers le programme ITI, un exemple de succès, je crois, d'un programme gouvernemental qui vise à répondre à ces enjeux. On a la chance sur le panel d'avoir également des entreprises, des entrepreneurs, des champions de l'industrie. Moi, j'espère cet après-midi vous apporter une perspective un peu différente, celle d'une institution financière, celle d'un partenaire de développement, une organisation qui a un maillage géographique qui couvre presque tous les pays du continent africain. Donc je représente l'Agence française de développement. Quelques mots sur... je suis la directrice de l'AFD en Égypte, basée au Caire. Quelques mots sur l'AFD pour vous présenter rapidement qui on est. On est la banque de développement de l'État français. On propose des solutions en termes de financement du secteur public, du secteur privé via notre filiale ProParco, des solutions en termes de coopération technique avec notre filiale Expertise France, mais aussi des partenariats dans les secteurs de la recherche, de la formation, plus globalement, je dirais, de la sensibilisation aux enjeux du développement durable aujourd'hui et demain. Vous avez là quelques chiffres clés. L'AFD, c'est 12 milliards d'euros de nouveaux projets l'année dernière, partout dans le monde, avec une présence dans 150 pays. C'est 3500 collaborateurs. En Égypte, on a une activité depuis 2008, avec quelques opérations un peu emblématiques pour nous sur le territoire d'Alexandrie, que je me permets quand même de citer pour vous donner envie d'aller voir des projets dans le secteur de l'énergie, dans le secteur des transports urbains, dans le secteur de l'assainissement, mais aussi de l'appui à l'entrepreneuriat féminin ou à l'environnement. Voilà, donc ça c'est en quelques mots sur qui on est. Et ce qu'on fait, on a un mandat qui est vraiment centré sur l'atteinte des objectifs de développement durable avec des marqueurs forts que sont le climat, l'égalité femmes-hommes et la participation, la gouvernance. Et en fait, pour venir du coup sur le sujet du panel, quand on a la conviction au niveau de l'AFD que quand on investit dans l'enseignement supérieur et la recherche, ça nous permet évidemment d'œuvrer vers l'atteinte des ODD numéro 4 sur l'éducation, mais aussi de l'ODD 8 sur les emplois décents, mais aussi de l'ODD 5 sur l'égalité femmes-hommes, sur l'innovation et l'industrie et les capacités technologiques, l'ODD 9, et puis même sur les enjeux d'adaptation et d'atténuation du changement climatique, l'ODD 13. Voilà. Donc vous voyez que c'est vraiment ce secteur, cette problématique qui nous réunit aujourd'hui, il est vraiment au cœur de notre mandat. Ce que je vais faire dans les 7 minutes qui me restent pour la présentation, c'est de vous donner quelques éléments d'analyse sur notre positionnement, c'est-à-dire de nouveau avec notre identité de bailleur, de partenaire, comment est-ce qu'on voit ces enjeux et surtout vous donner des exemples de projets financés par l'AFD pour essayer d'illustrer un peu concrètement comment on cherche à répondre à ces questions d'employabilité et d'éducation à la fois avec la mobilisation mais aussi les défis du numérique. Historiquement, l'AFD est très présente sur le secteur de l'éducation, mais plutôt sur l'éducation de base, la formation professionnelle. C'est plus récent qu'on vienne soutenir l'enseignement supérieur dans un contexte de très forte croissance, en fait, des populations d'étudiants et de chercheurs. C'est une activité qu'on a déployée surtout pour l'instant en Afrique, où on a sur les 20 dernières années 10% de croissance annuelle en moyenne en termes d'effectifs dans l'enseignement supérieur. Donc on voit vraiment qu'il y a ça pose beaucoup d'enjeux. C'est lié évidemment à l'amélioration sur les 20 dernières années de l'offre de l'enseignement secondaire et le développement économique du continent, mais ça pose beaucoup d'enjeux en termes d'inégalité d'accès, en termes de qualité et en termes d'employabilité. Donc vraiment les sujets qu'on veut traiter avec vous aujourd'hui. En termes de positionnement de l'AFD, qu'est-ce qu'on fait? On vient appuyer des politiques publiques. On vient soutenir la mise à niveau d'infrastructures et on vient travailler sur les questions de qualité et d'inclusivité avec une attention particulière. Je l'évoquais, c'est vraiment un marqueur de notre action sur l'accès aux femmes. On a par exemple en Égypte, pour illustrer un peu ce qu'on fait sur le champ de l'enseignement supérieur, un appui à la refondation de l'Université française d'Égypte depuis 2020. Alors sur le croisement éducation à l'ère du numérique, trois convictions que je voulais vous partager. D'abord, la première conviction, c'est que le numérique est un outil de développement, ce n'est pas une fin en soi. Et donc vraiment, à chaque fois qu'on finance un projet, on insiste sur l'entrée par les besoins, par les usages et pas par les solutions technologiques. Voilà, ça, c'est vraiment le premier élément de cadrage stratégique. Deuxième élément, c'est notre conviction qu'il faut évidemment s'adapter au contexte spécifique de chaque pays. Ça semble une évidence, c'est important de le redire. Même en Afrique du Nord, on a des disparités finalement très fortes en termes de connectivité, en termes d'usage, en termes de besoins. Et puis la troisième conviction, c'est que sur ce secteur en particulier, on a vraiment besoin de travailler, et je crois que c'était bien valorisé dans la présentation du docteur Heba aussi, de travailler tant avec le privé que le public. Et donc c'est pour ça que sur cette thématique, on mobilise tous les outils du groupe AFD pour travailler sur des exemples de projets que je vais vous présenter en termes de mobilisation des outils numériques, en termes d'appui à des EdTech par exemple. Donc je vais rapidement passer, et je serai heureuse de pouvoir continuer la discussion, soit pendant les questions-réponses, soit après, mais rapidement passer sur 5 exemples de projets avec des publics différents, avec des échelles différentes, avec des outils financiers différents, avec des partenaires différents, et évidemment pas que sur l'Égypte, mais sur tout le continent. Le premier exemple, et donc pour commencer par valoriser, par souligner notre partenariat avec la francophonie et avec Sangor, deux premiers exemples avec des opérateurs de la francophonie. Le premier, c'est le projet Eve at Lang, qui est un projet avec l'AUF, l'Agence universitaire de la francophonie, et FEI, la France Éducation Internationale, pour venir utiliser des ressources numériques comme outil de positionnement du niveau linguistique des enseignants. C'est vraiment un fil rouge de notre intervention sur ces enjeux, sur ces questions, de mobiliser les outils numériques d'abord et avant tout pour améliorer la qualité de la formation des enseignants. Deuxième exemple de projet, les équipes de Sangor pourront vous en parler mieux que moi, c'est le partenariat entre l'université, notre campus, notre université d'entreprise et Trace, pour venir, donc le projet Créafrica, qui mobilise des outils numériques et des technologies digitales pour venir outiller des entrepreneurs des industries culturelles et créatives en Afrique. Troisième exemple de projet, Digital Africa, qui est une des filiales de Proparco, qui est elle-même une filiale de l'AFD, donc dans le groupe AFD, qui est dédié à l'appui aux startups africaines, qui finance des investissements avec des outils financiers comme des fonds d'amorçage très très tôt dans la vie d'une start-up, mais qui font aussi du renforcement de capacité. Et donc j'en profite là pour faire un petit éclairage sur leur appel à projet qui monte en Égypte avec Ice Alex, que vous connaissez peut-être, qui s'appelle Talent for Startup. Ils forment aux métiers qui sont identifiés comme des métiers à potentiel pour des startups africaines. Voilà, donc l'appel à projet est ouvert. L'objectif, c'est de former 1500 boursiers sur tout le continent, de les accompagner, de les former, de les mentorer, puis de les mettre en relation avec l'écosystème de startups. Sur la dernière promotion, ils ont 70% de taux d'insertion. Au bout de quelques mois, voilà, donc avec toute une panoplie de nouveaux métiers du digital. Ça va du full stack engineer au digital marketing, donc n'hésitez pas à regarder cette initiative de Digital Africa. Quatrième projet, un exemple de projet multi-acteurs autour de l'enseignement supérieur et du numérique, dans un pays qui est la Côte d'Ivoire. Donc là, on est sur des investissements assez lourds sur les infrastructures, mais aussi infrastructure des universités, mais aussi développement d'un campus numérique. Ce qui est intéressant sur ce projet, c'est qu'on a vraiment l'objectif d'améliorer la qualité des apprentissages, la qualité de l'éducation qui est donnée, mais en fait en mélangeant avec des formes, en fait en hybridant l'offre d'enseignement supérieur existante avec des formes variées, que ce soit, ça va de l'enseignement purement à distance jusqu'aux MOOC qui sont non diplômants. Voilà, donc le projet défi. Et puis pour finir, un dernier exemple d'un programme dont on est très fiers, en lien avec la Banque mondiale, qui est le programme African Center for Excellence, en allant un peu au-delà du numérique. Et pour moi, ça illustre bien ce qu'on cherche à faire entre enseignement supérieur et employabilité, où on a investi dans une cinquantaine de centres, dans 11 pays, pour venir en faire des pôles régionaux d'excellence, stimuler les capacités de formation, de recherche, attirer les meilleurs étudiants, investir dans des nouvelles filières, dans des secteurs variés, que je le disais, qui vont au-delà du numérique, mais qui touchent aussi aux sciences appliquées, à l'ingénierie, à la technologie. Donc, pour atterrir ici, je suis tout juste au-dessus de 10 minutes. Et si je devais résumer mon intervention autour de 3 idées fortes. Nous sommes convaincus au niveau de l'AFD que le continent africain a besoin d'une masse critique d'expertise locale pour trouver des trajectoires et des modèles de progrès scientifiques, technologiques qui lui sont propres. Et donc c'est pour ça qu'on accompagne le secteur du supérieur, aussi bien sur le numérique que sur l'investissement dans des centres d'excellence comme le projet ACE. On est capable de le faire via le privé et via le public, en mobilisant l'ensemble de nos outils, y compris des partenariats de recherche. Voilà, ça c'était la deuxième idée forte. Et puis la troisième idée forte, évidemment, c'est que j'ai donné là un focus sur les enjeux, sur l'enseignement supérieur, mais c'est évidemment toute la chaîne, en fait, tout le continuum d'éducation de base jusqu'à l'emploi sur lequel il faut travailler, avec un accent sur la participation des femmes. Et ça, c'est peut-être un sujet pour une prochaine intervention et un prochain colloque. Voilà, je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup, Clémence. Alors, our next speaker, Madame Nora, you can come. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank you very much for inviting me to such a great conference. It's a great pleasure to be among these distinguished guests, and for Education for Employment, it's an honor to support in such a great conference. So before I start, I need to make sure that everybody in this room is listening. So if you can hear me, clap once. Oh, that's a good start. If you can hear me, clap twice. If you can hear me, clap 4 times. That's a good start. Now I can start. Okay, so we are EFE Egypt, Education for Employment, Egypt, in Arabic, مؤسسة التعليم من أجل التوظيف مصر. We are an Egyptian NGO registered with the Ministry of Social Solidarity since 2008. So we've been operating in Egypt for the past 15 years. And last July was our 15th anniversary. We're very happy to be operating for this amount of time, and we are registered with the Ministry of Social Solidarity. Although we are an Egyptian NGO, yet we are very lucky to be a part of a network of affiliates across the MENA region. So the red flags are existing affiliates in the MENA region doing exactly like we do. So Education for Employment exists in Egypt, Jordan, Morocco, Palestine, Saudi, Tunisia, and Yemen. The orange flags are our global team. So we have an office in US, New York, another one in Madrid, and another one in UAE. The orange flags are our global office. They support us with international funding, international employers, the branding and the strategy, and so forth. But mainly the training and the education and the employment happens in the MENA region on the red flags. These are our three main pillars of success. So we highly depend on donors, whether internationally or locally, and they have to get approval from the Ministry of Social Solidarity, because everything that we offer youth is totally for free. So we impact youth and we serve employers and partners. These are our three pillars of success. I have a fantastic team of 24 members, half of which are our graduates, and this is something that we're very, very proud of. So this is our model. I was really very much enjoying the introductory speech and the Zoom meeting with Dr. Ayman and Dr. Allam, because what they're asking for is exactly what we are offering in Education for Employment Egypt. So we are a market-driven model. We start from the employer's end. We do a market needs assessment to see what are the employers looking out to hire out there. What are the skill set that they need in the entry-level jobs? Whether it's a blue-collar job, white-collar job, you name it. So we start from the employer's end, and we also end at the employer's end. So after the market study, we find the right caliber, we train them, and then we place them back into these jobs. So the employer and the private sector plays a very important part in our equation, because they are the starting and the ending point. And through this equation, we impact the lives of thousands of Egyptian youth in Egypt. These are some key facts and figures since inception. So we have several programs. I'm going to go over them very, very quickly. Across all the programs, we have graduated more than 25,000 Egyptian youth. For the programs that end with a job opportunity, we have graduated and placed more than 5,000 youth, out of which are 1,000 youth in the TVET and vocational sector. We have partnered up with more than 100 strategic partners, and across the 5 years, we have partnered up with 12 universities. Very proud that Alexandria University is one of our partners, and we covered all of Egypt. So we have covered all governorates, whether we teach physically, or we send our trainer to the governorate, or we market up with a service provider to give the training, or we teach online. The three circles at the bottom are our three KPIs of success. So on a yearly basis, we have to maintain a job placement rate between 80 to 85%, because from our name, Education for Employment. So we are not a training center. We don't hit and run. We train, we place, and we retain. So 80 to 85% is our yearly job placement rate. Not just that, but we also measure the job retention rate, where we keep on following with our graduates for a period of a year to make sure that they are still employed, whether in the same position, they got promoted, they changed the employer. The most important thing is that they are employed. Not just that, but we're very high on women empowerment, and we're very proud that 57% of our graduates are females. We have an online, as I said, we teach physically, and we can also teach online on Zoom and Google Meets, and we also have our learning management system for more self-learning for our students. These are all our programs. I'm going to give a very quick overview about them and then go into each one also very quickly in the coming slides. So the first program is our flagship program, which is called Job Placement Training Program. It targets graduates from local universities and high institute. It's a long program, and this one ends with a job placement opportunity. The second program is a shorter one. We call it Career Directions Program. The target group is students in their senior years right before graduation. The third one is entrepreneurship program for those who have a company or a minimal viable product. And the final one is more alumni development for our graduates. So quickly, I'm going to go over each program. The first program is simply a game changer. It's like you got a job. It's like you got an internship. It's a long program for a period of a month or 6 weeks where you come, our students come each and every day from 9 to 5, formally dressed, and through this program they take, the second slide please, yeah. Through this program they take all the soft skills needed to fit in the labor market. So we give them communication skills, presentation skills, listening skills, teamwork, emotional intelligence, and so on, which is exactly what was said in the introduction of this fantastic day. And they have so many other days like presentation days and mock interview days. Following are some photos of this program, whether we teach physical or online. As you can see, as if they got a job, the students, they get the chance to do presentations in front of an audience, which is the most difficult thing anybody could be faced with. And we do that online and offline. These are some photos of a mock interview day where we teach our students how to pass an interview and how to prepare a CV. And we also do that online and offline. And this is the most important component of any job placement opportunity, which is employment day. What differs this employment day than any other job fairs that we have is that, as you can see in the pictures, we have real employers with real vacancies, and the students, they sit for their first interview. Around 70 to 80% of the students, they get accepted, or we call them graduates here, they get accepted from the first interview, and then the companies follow up with them for a second interview. So this is a very, very important day. They don't just pass over and pass their CVs. No, they sit for an actual interview. And by the way, we are preparing for a job fair here in Alexandria that we're going to be launching very soon, and I'm very happy to be partnering up with a variety of partners here in Alexandria. These are photos of the graduation day, which is the last day of the project, where they just present their projects that they have been working on throughout the program. This is the second program. It's called Career Directions Program. This is just a trial to solve the problem of unemployment before it even starts. So we target senior years, fourth year, third year. We give them CV writing, interview skills, and how to find a job for the students to be able to join the job fairs by their universities and be able to pass the interviews on their own. These, again, are some photos of these classes, whether we do that online or offline. And these are some photos of our entrepreneurship program, where we support youth who have a minimal viable product or who have a company. And definitely AI are now integrated across all our programs, and we started off with how to write your CV using AI. And in Egypt, we're very highly dependent, in EFE Egypt, we're very highly depending on AI to develop our remaining courses. This is just alumni program for more and more development for our graduates. And we have two premises in Egypt, one in for those who are aware of Cairo, and one in Heliopolis, in partnership with Majd Al Futtaim in City Center Al Maza. We are located inside City Center Al Maza Mall. And the good thing about this premises is that it is accessible to people with disability in partnership. Can you have the previous slide? Thank you. I just wanted to mention that it is accessible to people with disability with Helm Foundation. These are other activities we can move faster that we apply. These are a sample of our strategic partners and donors that we work with, a wide range of donors. Next slide. And this is a sample of our employers. These are our board members, board of trustees. Our chairman is Mr. Anissa Klimandos, and we have a very big board of 15 board members. And I just want to tell you that we have a very big project with ILO Prospects Program, which is mainly digital skills built online for Egyptian and refugees, where we teach web development, cybersecurity, as you can see, and marketing, digital marketing, and full stack, and so on. And before I end, I just want to say one thing in Arabic. please, if you don't mind, we have a booth, I'll say it in both languages actually. We have a booth out there, Education for Employment. Please go and register. And for the Egyptian students, احنا عندنا booth برا. Please ما تفوتوش الفرصة. احنا هنا عشان نحاول نساعدكم بالتدريب والتوظيف، فاستغلونا أسوأ استغلال. And we're very happy إن احنا نجاوب على كل أسئلتكم، ويا ريت تشاركوا معنا. عندنا برامج physical, online, all what you need. And for the partners under this roof, we're very happy to support in co-creating together for the all benefit of the youth, the private sector, and the economy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Noura. So our next speaker, Microsoft Amr, please join us.
Thank you. Sabah al-Khair. Good morning, everyone. This is Amr al-Masri. I'm Education Business Lead at Microsoft. Thank you very much for Library of Alexandria for the great hospitality. Thank you for the prestigious panelists to be part from this strategic approach of how can we discuss and how can we bridge the gap between the academia and the future jobs. I was really happy to hear from my colleagues, from Dr. Heba, from Noura, from Dr. Hani, what kind of impact we can bring to the society, leveraging all our capabilities in order to make things more better for the students across the board. I was talking with Dr. Heba right before the panel, and she was asking me, do you know ITI? So I instantly responded, definitely I know ITI. No one in the country who's interested in the IT field for the past 20 years doesn't know ITI. ITI is a great, they did a great impact to the society. I believe the 9-month package, you didn't market anything related to ITI. It's an impact. You bring an impact, you brought an impact to the society, which makes the ITI is more credible for the rest of all the training courses that we are providing in the country. So thank you, Dr. Heba, for bringing this kind of impact to the Egyptian country. Thank you for the other speakers, for Dr. Hani and Noura. I was really happy to see the impact that we're bringing through NGOs, through universities, in order to start leveraging all our capabilities in order to achieve more. I believe Microsoft is not far from this, because we're working heavily in the education sector in order to start empowering every student and teacher to achieve more. Before going into details, I'm going to be very quick in order to make it to the point. Does anyone know how many number of students worldwide who are using Microsoft services? Students under universities and K-12. Do you know any rough numbers around how many number of students who are using Microsoft? We're talking about 400 million students across the board who are using on a daily basis all our productivity tools and Windows operating systems in order to start building all their capabilities in order to achieve more, using Microsoft productivity tools that is already part from our agreement with Ministry of Education and Ministry of Higher Education, not only in Egypt, in other regions, providing all our services in order to provide students with all the technology platform that can stimulate their creativity, problem solving, and critical thinking techniques. We're not selling solutions, we're not selling a specific product, we're providing a platform. Platform in order to start, as I said, stimulating the creativity and critical thinking for each one of the students. We don't have one size fits all, we don't have a specific solution for a specific individual. We're very keen in order to start improving the personalized learning. How can we start adapting our technology in order to meet each one of the individual's needs? Amr is different than Dr. Hani, is different than Dr. Heba, is different than Noura. Each one of us has his own capabilities and his own capacities. So how can this platform for Microsoft can provide a bunch of services in order to start thinking what should be relevant to my capacity in order to start achieving more, in order to start achieving my ultimate goal, either in the academia or the academic study or in my future jobs. Statistically, I believe we have a very huge opportunity in order to see how can Microsoft, through our services, can bring a great impact to the society. I can go through it quickly, just to give you a little bit background about the opportunity that you are facing in the next 3 to 5 years. As you may know, Microsoft decided to acquire LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the world's largest recruitment or professional network on the internet. We acquired LinkedIn since 2016, I'm sorry. And based on this sort of acquisition, we start to get some professional or formal statistics around what is the exact future jobs. What are the most demanded jobs in the next 3 to 5 years? In the past 20 years, I believe Microsoft certifications is part from any one of the students in order to get certified for Microsoft in certain competency, and then put it in the CV in order to start looking for the specific job that they are looking for. However, in the past 20 years, I believe we faced some challenges because too many certifications and too many certified people versus very limited number of vacancies that are already available. Maybe there are too many vacancies, but it's not relevant specifically to the certification got for Microsoft. That's why we need to start bridging the gap between the academia and future jobs by linking between the most demanded jobs in the future with the existing curriculums and training courses that we're providing for students. So by making this link, we can assume that the student, regardless his role or his capacity or what faculty he belongs in, he can start looking for the most demanded jobs. For example, 10 jobs, not related only for computer science or AI, the most demanded jobs across the board. So they are going to select from LinkedIn what should be the expected job that he was dreaming on, and then he can see the learning path, the complete learning path for free. So they can equip himself with all the technical abilities in order to be ready for the most demanded jobs in the future. So we can say that by making this kind of bridging the gap, we can facilitate for the students what are the expected jobs or demand in the employment market, and then they can decide either to go for this direction or the other one. As you can see, statistically, in the past 2 years, we made some formal statistics from LinkedIn stating that 4.3 million jobs could be left unfilled by 2030 due to the technology skill shortage. This is one of the challenges. 51% of employers think college graduates are not well prepared for the workplace. The most interesting one is 37% of recent graduates believe college didn't help them secure their first job. Another percentage, with 64% of recent graduates believe their matters need to focus more on certification opportunities. By making these statistics practically, we need to start thinking about what our solutions in order to bridge this gap. As I said, 4.3 million unfilled opportunities in the next 2 or 3 years. It's a huge opportunity for us in order to start thinking about what should be our learning path in order to reach this unfilled opportunities. So the opportunity is huge. So what can Microsoft bring is providing plenty of courses, plenty of certification that is already for free based on our agreement between Microsoft and the Ministry of Higher Education and Ministry of Education. Specifically for universities, the universities has the ability in order to start availing our platform, including, I believe, more than 3,000 training courses, including different streams and different workloads, especially AI, blockchain, machine learning, IoT, different things provided by Microsoft. It's already for free for you guys, in order to start thinking what should be relevant to my capacity. And then I can go for this learning path for free, taking one by one, course by course, in order to be, at the end of the day, a caliber that can be ready for the future jobs. Another statistics that has been shown. Let me talking about this big number. Around 150 million new jobs will be added in the technology sector by 2025. You can imagine this number? We're talking about 150 million jobs that will be available in the next year. That's why there is a great passion for Microsoft in order to start availing all our services to students, in order to think what could be relevant to my side in order to start proceeding with this. In order to make it quick, I just have one of the samples that already implemented successfully, and I believe this can be replicated across the board. This is one of the universities called St. Leo University, based in Florida in USA. Already they embedded, or they managed to integrate their curriculums to Microsoft Learn, to Microsoft Platform, in order to make their curriculums live and dynamic and up to date. So that they grab the attention big time for students in order to make all the curriculums live. All the curriculums will be up to date with the pace of the technology. You know, the pace of the technology is very fast. So 1 year before, we didn't know anything about the ChatGPT and OpenAI. Recently, our OpenAI, our collaboration with OpenAI, with Microsoft, is the big hype, is the biggest hype nowadays across the world. We created different use cases in order to start improving the learning journey using AI. So in order to start availing this to the students, the university took a further step by integrating all our platforms to the existing learning management system, and then all our platform, all our content is already available for the audience in order to be up to the standards, up to date with the technology, in order to start making a future caliber in the coming period. Microsoft Learn, as I said, it's one of our main learning platforms. It's already available for everyone. Definitely, I can share with the team and Alexandria and the Library of Alexandria all the URLs or links that could be beneficial for you in order to start exploring what could be relevant to you as a student. One of the things that will be very relevant to most of the universities across the region is how can we start maximizing the benefit of Microsoft services. Microsoft services, by design, it's already for free for certain functionalities for each one of the students, using the email identity, using Microsoft Office 365, which is the main applications for Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Access, and another 12 applications that already part from this package. It's already there. It's already based on the university agreement with Microsoft. You can get this kind of certificates and get kind of technology in order to start improving the learning journey going forward. Thank you very much, team. I'm looking forward to meet you all, and I believe that the panel discussion will be fruitful for you going forward. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Amr. It's an excellent presentation. So we have Sharif Nagar from Siemens. This is the last presentation before we can open the floor for a few questions. Thank you.
So, are you still ready for another presentation? Could you please stand up? Please, could you please stand up? Stand up. Yeah, please. Just stand up. Yeah. Just to have some energy, because, yeah, it's a final presentation. I will not take a lot of time, but please stand up. Okay, we will play a simple game. When I say 1, you say 2. When I say 2, you say 3. When I say 3, you say 1. Loudly, please. So 1. Again, when I say 1, you say 2. When I say 2, you say 3. When I say 3, you say 1. So 3. 2. 1. 2. Great. You are very great. Okay. When I say, please keep standing. Still have us. We'll make it a little bit difficult. Okay. When I say 1, you say 2, and you put your hands above your head. When I say 3, you say 1. When I say 2, you say 3. So 2. 1. 1. 2. Okay, great. Thanks a lot. You can say. So, in my presentation, I will take you with a story or a journey about the education that Siemens have done so far. And I'm proud that I was part of this journey and this story, because it started in 2009, okay? And this is what the starting point. In 2007, in February 2007, there was an agreement signed between Siemens in Egypt. Dr. Hani said that Siemens is from Germany, but I'm proud to be an Egyptian. So it was an agreement signed between Siemens in Egypt and also the government in Egypt to have training labs focusing on the automation. And why automation at this time? Because this was the gap at this time. At this time, with the gap in the market that we need to deliver graduates from the engineering university in Egypt to tackle the automation. And with this initiative, we have trained around 4,500 trainees across Egypt, from Cairo University, from Alexandria, from Ain Shams, from Asyut, from across Egypt. We deliver 50 training labs focusing on the automation part. We train 4,500 trainees, and we train 112 trainers from different universities. And the target was to close the gap and to have like a graduation projects with the university tackling a specific industry problem. We bring an industry problem from the market, from the industry, and then we do like a competition. It's called an INDAC competition. This is from one of the newspaper, by the way, at that time in 2010. And you can see that Alexandria University won the first place. I mean, so this is, we award the first 3 places. Alexandria was the first place, Azhar was the second place, and then Banha was the 3rd place. So we do a competition every year with the graduation projects. Those graduation project is tackling a real industry problem. We pick an industry problem from the industry leaders. We bring a jury in the competition, and then we do the awarding. So this was in 2009, 2010, 2011, and after the revolution, everything we stopped. So this was the story in 2009. And by the way, I joined Siemens in 2009, and my manager came and said to me for this role, he said that, are you interested to work with the students? I said, yes, why not? Are you interested to work in graduation project? I said, yeah, why not? It's something very interesting to work with the students and to work on this project. Then, this is some photos for nowadays. This is Henry Ford. He has been doing this car for 19 years. So 19 years, he is delivering this car to the market without any modification, without any improvement. And this is a Tesla car. So what do you think? For how many years Elon Musk will produce this? 6 months? 1 year? 2 years? Maybe? And then? I don't know you know this or not, but I know this telephone, okay? I'm 42 years old, but I have used this before. So they kept delivering this phone for 68 years. We have been producing this telephone for 68 years without any modification. It's a dial-up. How many years Apple is doing iPhone 12, 13, 14? I mean, every 6 months we have a new model, yeah? So there is an innovation, there is a new model, a new camera system, and we have to be more fast to deliver this to the market. So this is the era that we are living now. It's the Industry 4.0. So you need to be ready for this. So how to be ready for this? I will go through this video, please. Yeah.
And then that transformation to being able to. And what
So this is why what my colleagues in Siemens United States have done with some universities, and I hope that we could replicate this, and we could replicate this. If our universities in Egypt are not able to afford the software, we could avail the software. We have in Egypt here now, together with the Ministry of Telecommunication, we have, this is called Siemens Center of Competence. It's in the new capital. And in this Center of Competence, we are targeting not only factories and startups, we're also targeting students and SMEs to come and to join and to use the technology, the software, the simulation software and everything. Next slide, yeah. This is a sample from the software that we have to do like a mechanical design, electrical design. Using, you can do a simulation and a validation using the digital twin technology. We have 3D printers, metal 3D printers. We have a CNC machine also to do a prototyping. So if you want to design a product from your own, if you have the idea, you can come to us and we could help you to do this. We want you to be ready for the new era. We want you to be ready for the Industry 4.0. So if you are not ready now, we could make you ready. So thank you a lot. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Sharif. So I guess we have like a variety of excellent presentation between Microsoft, Siemens, ITI, and La France, and also EFE, and so this is great. I guess before I start entertaining some questions to the panelists, I would like maybe to give the option for the people who are participating, the students, if you have any question. I know we're running out of time. We have maybe about 20, 25 minutes. So maybe if there is anyone who would like to ask a question for the panelists, please raise your hand, and we have microphone available. Someone have to start, I'm sure. The students, do you have any question? Yes, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, do we have a mic here? Can you give her a mic or?
Thank you. My question goes to our first speaker. According to you, what are the main barriers for African women accessibility to the ICT job opportunities? Thank you.
Is this question clear to you? No. Can you repeat the question, please, and to say to whom are you addressing the question?
To the first speaker.
First speaker?
First.
Okay, which means Dr. Heba. Okay. Yeah. Yes, what's the question?
What are the main barriers for African women accessibility to the ICT job opportunities?
So you are asking about the opportunities and the...
What are the barriers for women, for African women?
The barriers for accessing the opportunities, I think, is good education and opportunities to have good opportunity to take your part in this. In our sector, everything is availed using the technology. Technology itself allows to avail the content, avail the mentors online, for example. So it's not recorded, availing even personalized learning as being mentioned by Sharif through the AI application. So I think the opportunities are already there. If you don't have internet, it will be a hindering factor. If you don't have a computer, it will be a hindering factor. Only with these two minimum requirements, the word, you are owning the words at the tips of your fingers. So, by the way, at ITI, we are availing our services, and we have so many number of opportunities. Thanks to this learning models, this e-learning services, with other sisters in Africa, other sister countries in Africa, either to twin one or more of our initiatives, or just to train remotely, or a mix of one or more initiatives. So I don't think with this magnificent, this huge power of technology, it's up to us to take this initiative and to believe in ourselves that we can do something. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Heba. Yes, we have a question here. We have the mic, please.
Merci. Bonjour, je suis Christelle Mbala, Université Senghor, département management. Je voudrais m'adresser à Madame Clémence de l'AFD. Je suis présidente du club We Women de l'Université Senghor, le club qui traite des questions des femmes. Ne prenez pas ça comme un piège. Nous avons des activités que nous préparons en ce moment concernant les formations pour les auditrices et les auditeurs également, concernant le leadership féminin et la masculinité positive. Et vers la semaine du 8 mars, nous avons des activités également et je voudrais vous inviter à être dans notre panel de débat. La deuxième question, je voudrais parler, par exemple, dans mes activités, j'ai beaucoup accompagné les femmes dans les activités génératrices de revenus, dont nous avons un programme Solidarité plurielle qui a déjà fait ses 3 éditions pour l'accompagnement financier des femmes. Mais justement, nous les formons et nous les finançons et elles retournent le financement sans intérêt. Seulement, le fonds flanche un peu et parfois on veut avoir accès, on veut que ces femmes directement, qu'on organise à l'association, aient accès au certain financement de l'AFD. Mais je vous assure que en fait, le processus est un peu difficile pour ces femmes qui ont des petites associations. Comment vous pouvez améliorer vraiment le système pour qu'elles puissent y avoir accès? Merci beaucoup.
Merci. Est-ce que vous avez un commentaire, Clémence?
Oui, bonjour. Je vais répondre en français du coup si c'est OK. D'abord, merci beaucoup. Bravo pour la création d'un réseau féministe, d'après ce que je comprends de vos activités à l'Université Senghor. Pour information, comme de nombreuses structures publiques françaises, l'AFD s'est dotée d'un réseau féministe, mais très récemment, seulement depuis l'année dernière. Voilà, donc vous êtes pionnière. Je serais ravie, si possible, de participer à des événements. N'hésitez pas à m'inviter, à nous faire signe. On est basé au Caire. Et donc, si c'est possible, je serais toujours ravie de venir à Alexandrie. Sur la question de l'entrepreneuriat féminin, des activités génératrices de revenus, c'est vraiment un de nos axes d'intervention, y compris en Égypte. On finance MESMEDA, l'agence des petites et moyennes entreprises, pour à la fois sur un segment microfinance et sur un segment PME, accompagner des femmes entrepreneurs et des femmes chefs d'entreprise, pas uniquement avec des outils financiers, des prêts, mais aussi avec du mentoring, de la formation, du networking, donc tout ce qu'on appelle l'accompagnement non financier pour créer ou développer son entreprise. Et j'ai rencontré personnellement il y a quelques mois des femmes entrepreneurs, chefs d'entreprise à Alexandrie qui avaient bénéficié de ce type d'accompagnement. C'est très puissant et c'est très créateur d'emplois. Depuis 2020, on a accompagné plus de 10 000 personnes à travers MESMEDA et ça a créé plus de 28 000 emplois. Donc on voit que l'effet catalyseur pour les femmes et les hommes est très fort. Pour des financements, la question spécifique sur le financement de l'initiative, je vous propose qu'on en reparle soit après le panel aujourd'hui, soit à l'avenir. Je serais ravie de prévoir un échange spécifiquement sur ce projet.
Ok, merci Clémence. Yes, any more questions? Yes, please. Yep.
Bonsoir, chers panélistes. Moi, c'est Guylaine Chandel, Université Senghor. Je suivirai avec beaucoup de véhémence vos différentes interventions. Et ma première question, elle est peut-être, je veux dire, assez philosophique. Elle question en fait la déshumanisation du travail. Parce qu'aujourd'hui, on a une course folle vers la technologie et on se demande plus tard si le travail humain aura lieu. Est-ce que j'ai suivi une autre intervention sur le fait que l'utilisation d'Internet était un catalyseur de pollution, je ne sais pas, des dépenses d'énergie. Je ne sais pas si c'est de l'énergie fossile ou de l'énergie renouvelable. Donc j'aimerais savoir si l'utilisation de l'énergie pourra plus tard conduire à la disparition totale du travail humain. Et vu qu'on a des formations qui n'entrent pas forcément dans l'utilisation de la technologie, est-ce que ces étudiants qui font des formations qui ne sont pas en lien avec la technologie pourront plus tard être dépourvus d'emploi vu qu'on court vers la technologisation du travail? Ça, c'est ma première question. Ma deuxième question concerne la technologie en Afrique. On a une fracture, je ne dirais pas forcément uniquement numérique, mais on a également une fracture technologique. Comment penser l'avenir de l'Afrique? Parce qu'aujourd'hui, on parle de l'avenir qui appartient à l'Afrique. Comment penser aujourd'hui l'avenir de l'Afrique avec la technologie qui est, je trouve, être aujourd'hui un frein en Afrique, un manque qui reste à combler. Merci.
Clémence, est-ce que vous voulez essayer de répondre à ces questions, s'il vous plaît? Merci.
Je ne suis pas certaine d'avoir complètement compris la première question. Ce que j'ai retenu, c'était l'impact de ces nouvelles technologies sur l'emploi et un lien avec les questions environnementales. C'est ça ? La deuxième question sur la technologie en Afrique et la fracture numérique. Évidemment, si les autres panélistes ont des propositions, des interventions, n'hésitez pas, mais je veux bien que vous simplifiez et que vous résumiez en une phrase la première question, parce que je ne suis pas certaine d'avoir compris.
Ok, ma question est celle de savoir si on pourra plus tard parler de travail humain et où allons-nous, je veux dire, d'autres formations qui ne sont pas en lien avec la technologie. Est-ce qu'on sera plus tard dépourvu d'emploi? C'est ça.
C'est presque pour vous, professeur Annie, sur l'impact des innovations technologiques sur les futurs emplois.
Ok. La réponse va être en anglais, alors vous devez essayer de comprendre. Je suis certain que vous comprenez l'anglais aussi. Ou si vous avez des écouteurs. So Amr, if you want to answer this question, please. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, sure. Okay. First of all, there is an old taboo called Microsoft is already focusing only on the computer science and faculty of engineering. This is not the case. Microsoft is providing all our services for all students across the board. This is number one. Number two, Microsoft, as I said, has been acquiring LinkedIn. LinkedIn is already, they have a portfolio of courses related to soft skills in order to get yourself equipped with all the requirements or the prerequisites in order to reach the future jobs. So what you need to do is only exploring the LinkedIn, because we have plenty of services or initiatives in order to start covering all the courses not related to the technology, related to the soft skills, which empowers every student in order to start reaching the future jobs. So what you need to do, as I said, exploring LinkedIn. There is an initiative called Enterprise Skilling Initiative. You can search on it on Bing or Google. You can find plenty of courses not related to the technology in order to empower yourself with all the capabilities in terms of presentation skills, communication skills, even on the language level. How can we start equip ourselves with all the language level for English or French or whatever in order to be ready for the future jobs? So everything related to the soft skills is part from Microsoft portfolio, including LinkedIn. It's already public, it's already open platform for all the students in order to empower you to achieve more. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. J'essaie de répondre à ta question. Certainement, il y a des compétences numériques que tous les étudiants, n'importe de quelle faculté, doivent acquérir. Ça, c'est clair ici. Il y a toujours des travaux qui sont complètement humains, qui ne nécessitent pas beaucoup de technologie. Ça, ils vont rester toujours des jobs comme ça. Je crois que j'ai parlé déjà de la pollution numérique. On parle de l'Internet. On parle, si on utilise ça excessivement, c'est pas bon. Sauf si l'énergie qu'on utilise est venue d'une énergie qui est renouvelable. Par exemple, l'énergie solaire, l'énergie du vent, l'énergie de l'eau, par exemple. Alors, ça, c'est très, très important. Alors, on doit faire attention à ça pour ne pas gaspiller l'utilisation des Internet, de WhatsApp, de software, de Netflix, de toutes les choses qui utilisent, comment on dit, l'Internet. OK, any other question? Yes, please. S'il vous plaît, simplement dire à qui vous allez adresser la question, simplement pour faciliter. On a presque 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Merci.
Thank you so much. My name is Frank Ninahazwe. I'm from Burundi and a student at Université Senghor. My question is addressed to the one stand for Microsoft today. I just want to know how Microsoft is preparing the employee for sure and for attending this new technology, how can I say, new technology registration, because we have seen it is showing that in the future can cause a damage in the society. So how is it preparing himself to deal with those challenges that will be showing up, or even the registration that will be put there in different states? The second question is addressed to Heba and the last panelist stated about time for learning. Is there any opportunity for us, people who come from different corners of Africa, to learn those soft skills in this very necessary in this new era of technology? Thank you so much.
Okay, so you have one question for Amr and one question from Dr. Heba. Okay, so go ahead, Amr. Amr.
Okay. Actually, Microsoft has one of the largest R&D department worldwide, because we're very keen in order to start evaluating the challenges that we're facing, as you said, in order to see how can the technology can solve the current or the expected issues. So one of the things that has been developed in Microsoft, which is, as I said, one of the main tools, which is the productivity tool that is already available for all the students under higher education, called Office 365. We started listening to the challenges that we are facing in order to see how can this kind of products can overcome the current challenges or the future challenges. For example, Microsoft managed in the past 1 year, after we made a collaboration with OpenAI, in order to start integrating the OpenAI capabilities with each one of our applications. For PowerPoint, we make some sort of branding called Copilot. It's not an autopilot, it's a copilot. So we're not replacing the humans. We're just assessing the situation and starting to see how can AI can improve the way we are doing business, the way we are doing learning. So each one of these applications is already apart from this strategic point of view from our side, in order to see how can we build the new components in order to overcome the challenges. One of the examples that we faced, especially after COVID, the connectivity, because the rural areas, specifically in Africa, we don't have certain connectivity in order to start make sort of collaboration between educators and students. So we started to figure out how can our applications is already working offline with most of the capabilities without relying on the connectivity, without relying on the connection, in order to make our services available all the time. And this, I believe, this is one of the main challenges that we're facing, specifically in the continent, because most of our countries in Africa has lack of connectivity. That's why Microsoft made the strategic alliance with the technology operators or the telco operators in order to avail such kind of connectivity across the board. Not only this, but also providing our technologies offline using some few elements from the AI. So I believe our ambition toward achieving the ultimate goal of empowering every student and teacher to achieve more, leveraging our capabilities in order to overcome the next or the current challenges that we are facing.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Heba. Thank you.
You are reminding me with the Andela company that has been started in one of the African countries a few years ago. It was an initial investment by Facebook at that time. They were looking for thousands of trained calibers coming from anywhere, conditioning that they are ready for the required jobs being availed remotely. So I'm not sure if it's still running or not, but I'm sure that something like Upwork, for example, one of the highly growing marketplace in the world with 14 million freelancers coming from 140 countries all over the world. This means that the opportunities are there, and despite their location, despite their nationality, despite their whatever hindering factors with the classical working force, the opportunity is there for passionate learners and passionate people about the technology. How to start, how to take my share, start with good training and good practices. And I think the abundant number of resources, learning resources, Nora, for example, talked about online platforms, and we at ITI, at MCIT, we have free content and free online platform full of content subtitled in different languages, even with sign language. Part of it in Arabic and another in English, so LinkedIn is there. So I think these opportunities are there, either to take your part as a practitioner and professional, or if you're not interested in technology and you are interested, for example, with fashion, jewelry design, technology should be there as an enabler to reach out more clients, to position yourself, and to promote for your products. So yes, everyone can take part in this revolution by start hitting his passion and knowing from where to start. In light of the problem now is the abundant number of resources, not the lack of resources. So good luck for everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Heba. Thank you. Yeah, we have a question at the back.
أنا كنت عايزة أسأل بس بالنسبة لينا إحنا ك students لسه بنبتدي الكوليدج عندنا في الكوليدج يعني. دلوقتي إحنا عايزين نعمل مستقبل كويس لينا وكل حاجة، بس قدامنا حاجات كتير قوي. كل شوية حد يقول لك اتعلم كودينج، اتعلم ماركتينج، اتعلم مش عارفة إيه. فأنا عايزة أعرف إيه الأولوية اللي إحنا نبدأ بيها ونبدأ إزاي؟
أوكي، مدام نورة. أنا يعني طبعًا هي موجهة يعني she did not address to anyone, but I would like Madam Noura if she can answer that, you know.
Of course I can answer that. I hope you don't mind لو أجاوب بالعربي.
No, you can say it in whatever language, you know, Arabic and then mix it with English.
أنا هرد عليكي رد غير تقليدي. اسمك إيه معلش؟
بسملة طارق.
بسمة؟
بسملة طارق.
بسملة هرد عليكي رد غير تقليدي خالص. أنتِ محتاجة تبقي فايتر، يعني محاربة. ليه؟ لأن أنتِ مهما بدأتي في أي حاجة النجاح مش مضمون، لكن كونك إن أنتِ تبقي فايتر وعندك السبيريت وال يعني بالعربي اللي هي الجلد إنك تستمري، هو ده أهم حاجة. هقول لك حاجة تضحكك شوية، اللي في وشك خديه. يعني الفرصة اللي تتفتح في وشك الأول خديها، وخلي عندك الإصرار والعزيمة إنك تكملي فيها. والله لو لقيتي نفسك حبيتيها يبقى انت ماشيه مظبوط، لو لقيتي نفسك كل حاجه عماله تعكسك فيها في حاجه غلط هنا. فلو انت فاكره ان انا هجيب لك روشته هتعملي ايه 1 2 3، انا نفسي وانا قدك من 80 سنه ما كنتش عارفه ابدا منين خالص، لكن كان عندي الجلد والعزيمه والمثابره ان اللي يجي لي اخده وامسك فيه. ان شاء الله حتى تكوني بتعملي دكتوراه في الاقتصاد المنزلي، اعمليها بحب وعزيمة وقوة، ولو وقعتي قومي وقفي وكملي، ويبقى عندك الإحساس بكل ما تصعب تحلو في عينيكي، مش كل ما تصعب تخافي منها. بالعكس، كل ما الفرصة بقت صعبة هكسبها، كل ما الشغلانه مع المدير ده كان مزعج جدا انا هعرف اتعامل معاه. كل ما كان عندي زميل ليا مش عارف اخد ودي والكوميونيكيشن سكيلز معاه مش حلوه، طب تصدق بقى انا هعرف اظبط الكوميونيكيشنز بتاعتنا كويس. فكل ما تصعب تحلو في عينك. لو عندك الاراده والعزيمه انك تبقي فايتر والسبيريت صدقيني هتبقي وزيره.
ألف شكر مدام نور. في any more question؟ في question في الآخر.
Ahmed, I'm an Egyptian student at Alex University. First of all, thank you for this great speech. And I will ask my question in Arabic. في سؤال دايما بيجي في بالي وفي بال ناس كتير، يعني ازاي في نفس الوقت قارة زي قارة أفريقيا فيها كل الموارد غنية بموارد إنسانية والموارد الطبيعية، يعني في human resources و natural resources يعني ممكن ما فيش زيها في العالم كله، وفي نفس الوقت احنا لسه دول نامية وعندنا مشاكل كبيرة وعندنا يعني كساد اقتصادي وفي مشاكل كبيرة جدا يعني في نفس الوقت، رغم ان احنا نملك كل مقومات التقدم والنجاح ده سؤالي ممكن لحضراتكم كلكم يعني مش لحد معين.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a very heavy loaded question and I don't know exactly how to answer because that's a political question. And can anyone volunteer to answer that, Dr. Helen?
أشكرك يا دكتور وأشكرك على السؤال والحقيقة يعني أنا مش هرد على الأسباب لأن الأسباب كتيرة، ولكن هقول إنك في كل فعلا محنة في منح كتير، خدها انت كفرصه. يعني انا بشوف كتير من الشباب بيطلعوا يقولوا لي انا عندي مشكله ان انا مش شايف انا هعمل ايه. نوره بتقول لك عوم، انزلي عومي، لقيتي فرصه عومي وشوفي هتوصلي لايه. حضرتك في انت موجود في بيئه فيها مشاكل كتير، من هذه البيئه كتير من الشركات قررت تركز وتطلع حلول وتدور على الجهات الصح اللي تبني بيها وتكمل بيها خطواتها. فاللي اقدر اقوله لك انك وانت بتبص على الصوره الشموليه الكبيره اتس جود ان انت تبقى مثقف وفاهم ايه اللي بيحصل، ولكن ما تفقدش البوصله، بوصلتك انت كفرد. انا الفسيله اللي في ايدي اللي مطالب باني ازرعها حتى لو قامت القيامه بكره، القيامه دلوقتي، ايه الفسيله اللي في ايدي؟ رغبتي انا ايه؟ انا اقدر اشارك بايه؟ ما تتوهش في الزحمه بتاعت الصخب المجتمعي والصخب اللي حاصل، مشاكل اقتصاديه ممكن، مشاكل سياسيه ممكن، مشاكل كل ده وارد موجود في كل حته بتفاوت الاوزان، ولكن لا تدع ذلك الصخب يفقدك البوصله بتاعتك والنشان بتاعي. انا عاوز اعمل ايه؟ لو مش عارف اعترك مع زي ما بتقول نوره كده، اعترك مع ما سيقابله وانزل عوم.
اوكي
بالظبط. هو انا ممكن
Thank you very much. ألف شكر. I think we have only. I just want to ask if you can allow me. I want to ask one question because Sharif, I have to ask Sharif, because no question has been answered. Yes. But actually, I'm gonna ask the question for Sharif as well to also Amr. Both of you are in a very well-known international company, Siemens, Germany, and Microsoft, United States. How can you do more than what you are doing today, other than giving software to go and teach? Give presentation like that at university. Give case study at university. I mean, in Canada, let's say here, there are so many in the industry who go and they are part-time lecturer at university, etc. here. So I'm gonna start with you, Sharif. I know here we discuss opportunity for you to come and teach at Galileo University, but I want to see how can Siemens, all the people you have here, how can do more on that exactly. So can you answer that, Sharif, please?
طبعا هجاوب بالعربي عشان بقى يعني اوكي. طب لو انا بفهم سؤال حضرتك دكتور هاني مظبوط، حضرتك سؤالك ازاي سيمنز تقدر تساعد اكتر الطلبه في مصر، especially ان التكنولوجي بتتغير بسرعه جدا ودايما في نيو سوفت ويرز ونيو برودكت. طيب اللي احنا بنحاول نعمله في مصر زي ما شرحت كده في البرزنتيشن من سنين، بنحاول نروح للجامعات الحكوميه او الجامعات الخاصه وندي تريننجز ومش بس تريننج ثيوريتيكال، لا بنحاول نخلي الموضوع ليه طابع براكتيكال عشان اتس جود ان يبقى فيه هاندز اون على البراكتيكال. دايما بنحاول نعمل كل سنه بروجرام اسمه بيست ان كلاس فور انترنشيب، ان احنا بناخد ناس انترنشيب وما بقاش تريننج بس ثيوريتيكال، لا احنا بنشغلهم معانا اون ريال. يعني زي كده لما كانوا الناس بتسال لو احنا نعمل ايه، ف one of the answer ان انت محتاج تجرب تشوف هل ان انا اشتغل في المجال ده ينفع ولا لا، فانت you have to shadow و have to جرب. فاحنا بنعمل موضوع الانترنشيب ده، it's the best in class program، بيبقى 2 months في السمر. it's a completely you are as a Siemens employee، انت موظف في سيمنز تشتغل شهرين 3 معانا، you get all the training and then you get the job and you also you get paid. ف this is part من اللي احنا بنعمله. بنحاول يعني زي ما شرحت كده في البرزنتيشن، احنا عندنا حوالي 50 معمل على مستوى الجامعات كلها في مصر. بنحاول تاني نفتح المعامل دي ونenable المعيدين ان هم يقدروا يدوا الكورسات on our behalf، وبنحاول نساعد ان احنا نطور كمان معاهم المناهج، لان احنا بنحاول ندخل المنهج العملي اكتر. الثيوريتيكال بارت طبعا الجامعات بتعرف تديه كويس جدا، لكن احنا بنحاول نفيد ان ذا براكتيكال بارت. This is برضه one of our jobs اللي احنا بنحاول نعملها عشان نطور التعليم في مصر.
الف شكر يا شريف. عمرو عايز تضيف حاجه؟ وخاصة في المجالات اللي هي مش عايز اقول هندسة، يعني في الطب، في الصيدلة، البيزنس، الحاجات اللي هي يعني السوشيال ساينس، الحاجات اللي هي how can Microsoft help into non-engineering things, you know. Thank you.
شكرا دكتور هاني. ويمكن زي ما قال شريف، احنا الفكرة الأساسية ان احنا كمايكروسوفت يمكن احنا let's be honest، يعني مايكروسوفت is not able to provide all our services for total student population. My humble opinion is to start building sort of or establishing sort of strategic alliance with the government entities, with ITI for example, with MCIT, with NGOs like Noura, what she said. كل ده بيكبر حجم الاوتريتش اللي احنا ممكن نوصله، ده رقم واحد. طبعا موجود كل الانترناشونال كوبريشن بيننا وبين الشركات المشابهه لينا او الجهات الحكوميه، ده بيزود البوزيشننج بتاعنا بشكل اكبر في كل المحافظات بحيث ان احنا نوصل لاكبر عدد من الاوتريتش. الجزء الثاني زي ما حضرتك قلت دكتور هاني، مايكروسوفت از نوت اونلي فوكسينج اون فاكولتي اوف كمبيوتر ساينس وفاكولتي اوف انجينيرنج. ذا تروث از ان احنا اوريدي يمكن one of the examples، يعني احنا اوريدي currently احنا we building something related to agriculture called AI for agriculture. احنا بنخلي الفارمر بيبقى عنده الآلية ان هو يقدر using an app يقدر ان هو يديتكت what is the optimal crop that can grow according to the nature of their soil. So احنا leveraging the AI we can leverage all our capabilities for different sectors across the board, not only for the computer science. الفارمر يقدر يستخدم حاجه زي كده. الطلاب عندنا احنا عندنا طالب من جامعه عين شمس من احد الجامعات العريقه اللي معانا using one of our services called the Power Platform، ان قدر ان هو يعمل transportation app like Swivel and Uber using a very simple application that's already part from M365.
Okay.
فمعنى كده ان احنا الموضوع ما بقاش حكر على طلاب كليات هندسه وكليات حاسبات ومعلومات، بالعكس احنا زي ما قلت الاول في بدايه الدسكشن ان احنا مايكروسوفت is providing a platform not a solution. فالبلاتفورم بيساعد ان احنا بنقدر ان احنا نحفز كل الطاقات الابداعيه اللي موجوده عند الطلاب ايا كان تخصصهم عشان يقدروا يعملوا احسن ما عندهم.
Thank you. مدام نورا، are you exploiting totally through your organization Microsoft, Siemens, Dassault, is that part of your learning portal?
I just wanted to add، كنت لسه عايزة أقول that this panel shows exactly the power of co-creation. Okay. يعني this is a beautiful panel, spot on بصراحة، لأنه I can see a lot of synergies between each and every one sitting on this panel. يعني exactly. إحنا before we had the panel we already agreed with دكتور هبة إحنا ممكن نعمل إيه مع بعض ك NGO و ITI. I agreed with عمرو في a lot of potential that AFE Egypt and Microsoft can do together. لسه ما حصليش الشرف ان انا اتكلم مع الشريف، بس هو عمال بيعمل presentation I could see where we could fit in. Yeah. So احنا دايما بنسمي نفسنا in AFE Egypt we are elastic fantastic team. يعني we work with everything and everyone and every opportunity that falls on our lap. لانه احنا بيجي لنا فاندنج عشان نعمل تريننج، بس محتاجين مثلا نشارك مؤسسات وجامعات عشان ناوت ريتش للشباب اللي زي الفل اللي قاعد، محتاجين ايفنت زي كده عشان نوسع دايره البارتنرشيبس بتوعنا عشان نقدر نعمل شراكات، محتاجين donors and funding عشان we offer all of this entirely for free. So this is the power of co-creation rather than competition. وأنا سعيدة جدا وقد إيه شايفاها النهاردة. So thank you very much for this panel.
No, I fully agree here. This panel has been very, very much excellent, frankly speaking, because it has a variety of people. Even myself, I learn lots of things. I can only ask you a last question because according to your organization, it's called Education for Employment. In Canada, I cannot use the word education in Canada is only used for university. Anybody else who is doing something, they call it training. So are you stepping on the university, you know, الرسالة بتاعت university? This is very critical, by the way. I know here, you know, it's a nice acronym, F, you know, but what is your opinion about that? This
It's an excellent question that we can call ourselves training for employment.
Yes.
But honestly, the founder, Ron Bruder, where he established the organization in the US, he's the one to pick up the name back in 2002. So this is how he thought that by creating job opportunities in the Middle East, هنقدر نأثر في المجتمع، هنقدر نفيد الشباب، نوفر لهم وظائف، وبالتالي نفيد الاقتصاد ككل. بس للأسف الفاوندر سماها EFE Education for Employment، لكن it is training. You are absolutely correct. It is training. It is building the capacity. It is bridging the gap. All of this.
Okay. Anyway, thank you very much. I guess we would like to give like a round of applause for all the panelists. Thank you very much for your participation. Thank you very much. And I guess I will leave that to the organizer because I think there is a launch taking place or it's coming again, you know. So I'll leave that. I don't know exactly the organizers if you're going to say something about what the next step. I think let's finish our panel. We have a next panel in roughly 45 minutes. Thank you very much for your attendance.